do this right before a game. We really appreciate it. Sorry about the small crowd and unenthusiastic.
Is there a dimmer?
Yeah, I know it is hard to see.
It's a floodlight from outside. Give her some shades.
Oh yeah, that's a little better.
I need like that.
Well, I will start with Megan. I've been studying confidence for a long time, and confidence in women and girls. And watching the World Cup, I finally was watching you and I said, aha, that's what that looks like for women. And I mean, it's just performing under pressure, not afraid to speak out about what you believe in. But I guess for all the girls here today, you know, when you're a teenager, that can feel a little harder. Confidence isn't always at its highest when you're a teenager. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you and how you got to the place where you are today in terms of that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in sort of my middle school, high school years, I was not this person. I'm like so thankful that I had a twin sister. She just was like quite literally walked in her shadow and was very happy to be there. I'm like, thank God I have like coattails to hang on to. Just like feeling a little awkward. It's just a hard time in general. You know, like all these crazy hormones pumping through your body and sort of not really realizing who I was. I mean, I always kind of had sports to fall back on, and that gave me a lot of confidence. But socially, believe it or not, I was a little awkward and a little shy. Yeah, I know it seems inconceivable now, but it was totally awkward. But yeah, I just feel like sports did really give me that kind of something. And you sort of get on that team, and there's people from all different kind of walks of life, and just being able to have that little thing to fall back on. But I think too, just understanding like you're going to go through different phases of your life, and of course, as kids your age, you think that this is like, you know, the most important time that you'll ever have in your whole life, and nobody understands. But you know, things will change. You'll grow up and you'll mature. Just ride it out. But you know, sports was a big one for me for sure.
Well, you know, it won't surprise any of you to know that there's actually really interesting data that shows the longer as a girl you play sports, the more successful you are in your career. Even if you're not on the national team or playing professional soccer, right? If you keep playing, it really helps your success in anything you do. And part of that is about the risk-taking and the failure. And Rose, when I was reading about you and your creative style of play that we've all seen and how that can sometimes feel, I think I saw you quoted saying that can sometimes feel risky when you're in a high stakes game, but you really love to grab onto that. Can you talk a little bit about that in your own career and taking risks and failing?
Yeah, I think. This on? Okay. I had a coach when I was younger that really encouraged me to kind of play free and try things out, and it made it really fun for me. So I think that's why I kind of fell in love with the game was I was able to kind of have this creative style that I really enjoyed, and then obviously at the higher level you get, it gets harder to kind of impose your strengths on the game, and I think especially for me that creative style was something that I kind of had to adjust with each level that I got up to, but my thought was kind of this is why I've loved the game and enjoyed the game so much, and if I let fear take over and not let myself play like I want to, then it's not going to be enjoyable for me anymore. So it was definitely an adjustment period, and there are highs and lows. There's times where you're kind of in a rut and suck, and it's not fun, but I think you just kind of have to keep pressing on, and I feel like if first you don't succeed, try again, and yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what I've done at each level. It's definitely been an adjustment period, but I feel like I've slowly kind of gathered myself and gained more confidence, and yeah.
Thank you. And Andy, we were talking backstage about some challenges you've had. You were really injured in college, which was one of them, and that was hard to come back from, but you did in a big way. And just probably the philosophical challenge most recently of being sort of the just cut from being able to play in the World Cup. And how do you look, all these girls out here are facing tryouts, they're not making things, they're making high school teams, they're struggling, there's a lot that we all go through. How do you approach something? How have you approached it, and how are you approaching it now?
It's a great question. And something I'm still working on, because obviously there are moments, obviously I'm so happy for the United States and for these players and the team, and it was an honor to be a part of it at all. But it obviously crushed me to not be there with them. And I took a lot of different approaches along the way. My first thought was, okay, you have like 24 hours, 48 hours to mope about it and feel sorry for yourself, and then it's time to move on. And I think playing for the Spirit has been so helpful, just because with Steve and our coach Richie, they really gave me something else to focus on, and to try and regain my confidence as a player throughout the season, and I think that's been really effective. And when it was kind of similar to when I got hurt in college. I tore my ACL, and one of the people who reached out to me first was Megan. She's done it three times. So yeah, so just once, like I should be fine, right? And
That's fine. You'll learn everything you need to know for one time.
And the best advice I got throughout that journey was, okay, focus on what can you do, because there's always going to be things that aren't how you want them to be, and they're going to be, excuses or circumstances. You're like, oh, I wish this were different. But if you focus on those things, it's not going to really benefit you. So I always just focus on what I could do. And so through, missing the World Cup roster by, a couple players or so, I could cheer on my friends, and I could continue to work hard and grow as a player. And that's what I use to fuel my play right now.
And you're an amazing captain, by the way, I should say. Okay, so Mal, I think a lot of the girls here, you're so young.
Yeah,
You're so young, and youngest to play on the national team, right, in the Olympic. I mean, a lot of firsts for you.
Yeah.
What is it like? What was it like when you first started playing with these guys? I mean, I know Rose is fairly young too, but and how was it intimidating? And you're all really young compared to me. Let me just say, okay, like this is. But I was just thinking about how intimidating that might have felt, right, when you're playing with players who are much older and more experienced. And how did you approach that?
Yeah, so obviously, coming into my first camp, I was terrified. And I remember being in like the meal room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Alex just walked by. Oh my gosh, Carly just walked by, like kind of freaking out. But then I remember like when I started, all you have to do is just be yourself. And I think that's exactly what I did. And that's why I was kind of just like on this team. Being myself, and it worked out well for me. And obviously there was times where you're high and you're low, so it's those low times that I'm like, okay, what did I do when I think that you kind of have to work on and just accept, and you just have to, you really just have to be yourself, and know that it's okay to like be different, and know that you don't really have to fit in, and be like a certain player. Maybe Pino can make 6 shots in the quarterfinal or whatever, like
Whatever.
and that's like that, and and just be yourself.
This is, I keep taking notes, but I know I'm not going to be able to read them because it's all so great. So Allie, there were so many, I was watching the video on the site where you talked about your grandfather, which was so moving. And it made me think about how important it is to find inspiration and to find somebody who obviously really supports you, if we're all lucky enough to have some of that. But how important was that for you in fueling your game and drive?
So it's kind of weird because I didn't really realize what he was doing my whole life, because he never told me. And if any of you guys know, my grandfather basically would kind of like either leave like a magazine out, or would drop off like articles about Mia Hamm, or like random stuff.
Really
And- yeah. And took me to the '96 Olympics. Like he was always like got the tickets, made sure my mom, me, and if my dad wanted to go, he played rugby, so he was like, whatever. Like made sure that we were there. And he never told me that he was like trying to encourage me or like trying to plant inspiration in me, but he did in these like really subtle ways. And I guess I didn't realize the power of like encouraging someone and kind of planting these seeds, not being forceful, but kind of just letting the person develop in exactly what they love, but kind of giving them someone to look up to and something to dream for. And I think that's exactly what happened for me. I wanted to be Mia Hamm when I was younger, and I think so much of it, I look back at so much of my career, like he was the one that was kind of, bringing clips over for me to read, or like giving me a book on Anson in North Carolina, just little things that I probably didn't read, but I just thought it was really cool.
You knew he loved you.
Yeah, I knew he loved me, and I knew he was just, I'm like, wow, he like must love soccer. And then, yeah, he's really into the US Women's National Team. And then when he passed away, at his funeral, I was speaking, and so when I was just asking my mom questions back, I was like, was he like obsessed with soccer or something? And she was like, I mean, yeah, he liked it, but he was doing it for you. And then that's when I was like, oh my God, this whole time, like he wanted me to be on the US Women's National Team. Like, that's what he was trying to tell me. So it was actually really, really cool, like thinking back in, actually one funny thing, this is a little side note, I think I gained like a little weight, like maybe 10 pounds, and instead of like US Women's National Team articles, he was sending me like fruits and vegetables and like dietary ideas. Not to go on a diet, but like better options. So there's just a lot of things that I appreciate, and just having him not on top of me and making sure I'm making every correct decision, but just subtly like giving me inspiration and encouragement throughout my entire career.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I wanted to just ask, how do you get in the right headspace when you have a moment in a game? It might be a penalty kick, or it might be something creative you want to try, but the pressure's on when you're really up against the ropes. What do you have? A method? Something you tell yourself? 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out.
Method to the madness. For me, it's all about like preparation. Like the games for me, it's time to play. It's time to perform. Once you get to that point, you can't show up pregame and be like, oh my God, I didn't do all this stuff, and now I have to do all this stuff. Like you're showing up to the game, you got what you got in that moment. So I think for me, in order to feel comfortable showing up to a game, like that's what motivates me to do all of these other things. I want to be able to show up and be able to do what I want and be physically fit and be prepared for the other team and all of that before I show up to the game. So that's like the motivation in practice, because sometimes practice is not my most favorite thing ever.
But don't
it's
listen
necessary.
to that,
Yeah,
girls.
But
What?
it's like without that, you don't get to show up and be your best self on the field. So whether it's a penalty kick or whatever it is, obviously that's a more high pressure moment, but even just showing up to the game and feeling relaxed because you've done all the preparation, that's how I sort of prepare myself for games, and in turn like for big moments when you're called on.
Well, that makes sense. Rose?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I feel like I'm playing my best when I'm not thinking and things are just like, I feel like we all probably feel that way. Like it just feels natural and innate. And I actually was coming back from an injury like last year, and so like going into the World Cup, that was my big thing, was feeling the same kind of confidence I had before the injury. So I actually did a lot of like meditating, journaling, visualizing, and all that stuff, because I wanted to feel like as mentally prepared as I could be going into the game. And I feel like that helped me kind of get my feet under me and feel like myself and stay calm in kind of pressure moments and the big moments, and that's what I did.
Andy?
I agree with Pino that preparation is key and kind of the where the confidence comes from.
But for me, how I kind of get into the game and stay in tune with it is always to communicate, just because I feel like that's what gets me locked in. So even if it's kind of just unnecessary commentary or information to my teammates, I feel like that's how I just kind of get into the flow state that Rose was talking about. And that's something that I can always control. Like if I have a bad first touch or something like that, it helps me respond to, you know, something that doesn't go my way, and not let me stay thinking about something that might not have gone the way I wanted it to. So I just focus on that, and that's how I kind of stay in the flow state that I want.
Mel?
I would say for me, it's like there's like a certain like zone that you get in your head, and it's like what Rose said, like where you're just like not thinking and you're just playing. So, I mean, yeah, like all of those things, and like I would say for me to be able to get into that zone is me in practice. I think practice is like the best way that you can really work on whatever you need to work on, get repetition. So then when you are in those games and those high pressure moments that you know that you're comfortable, you're calm, cool, collected, whatever, and that you can like rise to the occasion. So yeah, I think it's definitely the preparation for me to be able to get into this like certain zone that I get into. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
I think obviously everything they said is part of it, definitely that I do. I think that the game is the best part, and that's what we're waiting for all week. You know, in training, of course, that's the time to get your reps, that's the time to prepare, but once it's game time, just never overthinking the moment, never kind of staying in exactly the moment it is, but not thinking too far ahead, not worrying what happens if we don't win this game, or just being able to stay in the moment and to focus on that, and to enjoy it. We've worked all week for a game, for the World Cup 4 years, so I think that the game is the absolute best part, and you should be prepared for the game, and that will definitely give you confidence. But I think that's what some people think I'm crazy for, like how many things I do to like recover like leading up to game time, but
and other reasons.
And just trying new things. Just, you know, ice bath pretty much. But yeah, I think all of that going in there just gives me confidence in knowing that the game is the time to kind of express and show all the hard work that you did leading into that game.
Thank you. It's great. I'm going to want a transcript of this whole thing because it's all really good advice. Megan, I was reading the new Marie Claire magazine. I don't know if any of you have seen it online. Great pictures.
Thank you.
I actually looked at the text too.
Okay.
There was a
All
great
right.
part,
That's
a
good
great
to
little
know,
interview.
yeah.
Yes. And I was really struck by something you said about that arrogance can sometimes even look good on men and be admired, but women essentially who often look confident, even not arrogant, just confident, can be criticized. And that this notion of how dare she take a moment for herself to let fans adore her, that women don't always have that space, and probably young women might feel the same way. How do we keep making that space, right? How do we make our space bigger? And then how do you keep from being continually frustrated that the space isn't quite there yet?
Oh, I don't know if there's anything you do about the frustration. That's always there for sure. I mean, honestly, I think you just take it. I think personally you have to take it, and sometimes that's a little bit difficult, but I think something that I've really realized in this last couple of months with this team and just going through the World Cup, like our team allowed the individuals and the team to take up that kind of space. Like we all just were kind of like, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're not just like thankful to be here. No, we worked our ass off to get to the point where, you guys have heard that word, you know, to get to the point that this is like, especially for women's soccer, this is the biggest, like baddest stage that you can be on. And we work so hard. We work so hard off the field. We take on a lot of serious issues, and like when we get the chance I just feel like we didn't even really talk about it as a team, but it just was so apparent. Like, we got this chance to finally let loose and be on the stage, and we all let ourselves do it and let the team do it and encourage each other. And like, we know deep down that we go about things the right way. We set the right example. We're like pushing the game forward and good role models for the sport and all of the little girls and little boys and everyone. And so I feel like we just allowed ourselves that space, and like, we also just deserve it. Like, we're really good. We're very successful. We work very hard.
Yes. And do you think, and I'm curious what all of you think, I mean, it must be easier. You said you were all backing each other up, but when you're on a team and when you're in a group that supports that, it makes it easier, I imagine, right? I mean, do you all feel that you can be more who you want to be, take risks when you have the power of the group behind you?
I think that we have been united in so many things that we've fight for off the field. And so I think that creates this bond. And we also, preparing for a World Cup, especially the last year, was probably the hardest thing to do. And to make that roster was so hard. And I think that when you go through those times with each other, it brings this closeness, and we all respect each other and appreciate each other, and almost are like in awe of the sense of like, she's so good, and she's so, like, everyone is just in their own way, so amazing. And I think that we all kind of feel that way. And so when Pina scores 2 PKs and we're all just like we believe in her so much, and to see her do that, like, we're like, hell yeah. And I think the fact that we all support each other so much and believe in each other so much, we're united in almost everything, and we're fighting for that space to be exactly who we want to be. And hopefully that when you guys are older and playing in World Cups, that you can act and be and celebrate and do whatever.
You guys are going to be wild because of us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you feel, I mean, Rose, I'm just wondering whether everybody's ready for the kind of attention. Is it incredible? Is there any pressure in terms of being role models, being out there? Everybody's so focused on women's soccer now, or is it all just absolutely awesome?
I mean, it's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're all honestly like ourselves, and what you see is like what you get. Like, I don't think anyone is putting on a persona or anything like that. So I don't really feel like this big responsibility, because I feel like I'm just being myself and I don't have to like change or do anything different. And I feel like it's cool now that I'm kind of in this position to kind of be looked up to, and I always say, like, give back to the sport in the same way that it gave to me. And yeah, I don't really like feel pressure on that front, because I feel like I just kind of have to continue to be myself.
What about you guys, Mal and Andy?
I mean, yeah, she said it all. Spot on.
Yeah. It's been really fun to hang out with Rose or Mal, and like, we'll go to our favorite coffee shop, and the barista will like freak out that Rose is in the coffee shop. Or one time, we walk in and they go, "I'm sorry, are you Rose Levy?" She said, "Yes."
Yes. So when I asked backstage, I want to mention that I wanted to talk about the lawsuit for equal pay, and everybody pointed at Megan. So they said, "Oh, she'll answer that question." Yeah. So let me just direct that at you. So I mean, it's taken so long to get to this point. Do you have hopes that either through mediation or a court date that something will happen? And why do you think it's important for women in sports and beyond, frankly, for women in general?
I'm very hopeful always. Not always encouraged by some behaviors, but I remain hopeful. I mean, eventually it will happen. This is the way the world is going. So I know that it will happen, and it might not, be in my playing career, but I'll spend my dying breath doing this always, and I think everyone on this team will. Yeah, you have to. It's
And let me just ask you to first, just so everybody in the room fully understands the issue, maybe just, I mean, it's essentially you're not paid as much as the men, but maybe you want to put
essentially,
it more
I think when you really boil it down, that, when the men's team plays a game against a like opponent and we play a game against a like opponent, even the potential for us is like this. So, if we play the second best team in the world, because we're the first best team in the world, and we win that game, and that's the highest bonus that we can earn, and the men play the best team in the world and they beat that team, and they get a much higher bonus. Our potential is not even close to there. So, legally, I think we have this right to do the same work to get paid the same money. That's what we're asking for. I mean, under the current structure, we would make more than the men, but that's only based on the results that we would have, or the results that we've had in the past. So I think first and foremost, we're just asking, if we play the same exact game as the men, that we have the potential to earn the same amount of money, or if we tie that game, or if we lose that game. Obviously, there's a lot more details. It's quite nuanced. I could be here all night talking about it. But that's really at the heart of it. And then just also the understanding that there has been historical discrimination against women in general, but certainly women in sports for a lot of years. And sometimes it's been, willful and sort of malicious, and sometimes it hasn't. And obviously our world is changing every day. But in order to close the gap, you have to overinvest in the discriminated against community, or in the underserved community. It's kind of like social justice 101, overinvest in underserved communities. So it's not really even enough just to say, okay, we're going to, do equal or whatever when we talk about FIFA. They need to do more. They need to do more to build the game and to, set a solid foundation, to invest in the women's game, to eventually, get it to a place that is comparable to the men. And I think the frustrating thing for me personally, I think for us and the teams, we've been able to be this successful while still not having equal pay. Imagine if we spent all of our energy not fighting against you, but fighting with you. That's just take all of that charisma, brain power, and the power of the team that we have, and how popular the team is, and we could actually work with you instead of working against you. I see the potential to be so huge. We've been able to be this successful, not only on the field, but off the field, and building this huge brand, and, frankly, just a multi-million-dollar business, the women's national team. Imagine if we actually all worked together and could actually reach that potential. Everyone would make more money, and yay, that would be so much more fun. Why not? So.
I need to check your watch, because I'm on a very strict
30.
timing. Okay.
31.
Excellent. I don't want to go over the time, because I know you guys have to get to bed. I just had two more.
It's true.
Well, or to the bar.
Yeah.
If you're from Seattle, I guess you're going to the bar. But a couple more questions. I wondered. I read also somewhere that you said sometimes you felt like, with all the young players coming, you're like the grandma on the team giving people advice. You don't seem like a grandma, but
I'm a cool
but
grandma.
You're the cool grandma.
Cool grandma.
I guess I just wanted all of you, because you all have that kind of wisdom for the girls in the audience, if you could give them a piece of advice about, soccer, or speaking up for things they believe in, whatever it would be. What would you tell these guys? And anybody can start.
There's a lot of things I feel like I would say, but I think if there's one thing that I could say, you guys are, like you said, going through tryouts, and you're at a young age where, coaches are going to tell you you're not good enough, or I was told I was never going to make it to the pro level. I still want to find that coach that said that and have a conversation, but I know where he works. But anyways, St. John's. So, just kidding. No, but I want to encourage you guys that failure is never like final, and that actually failing kind of teaches you so much. And I think when failure first happens, everyone thinks it's the absolute worst thing that could ever happen in your entire life, and you just want to quit soccer and never play it again. But actually, it's these moments that you're really gonna learn from what didn't go wrong, and like build this fire inside of you to never let that feeling happen to you again. And it kind of shapes you who you are in the sense of the athlete you want to become. So I would just encourage everyone here that if you're ever told you're not good enough or you're never going to make it, do everything in your power to prove them wrong. And then you can find them where they work. Just kidding, girls.
This is good. There's a lot of fiery advice tonight. I like it. No.
So I have two things. The first thing, I'm like looking around, seeing all your like club jerseys. I remember when I was like your guys' age, not too long ago. Yeah. Not too, like 2 years ago. But yeah. I was just like having so much fun playing. And I think you always have to enjoy playing and like have that passion, because when you don't, you kind of like get burned out, and I think then that's when you're not having fun anymore, and everything just is like going up in flames. So I think always enjoy the game and always enjoy like your teammates and the relationships that you build, because I'm like 2 of my best friends are sitting here today. So like
5 of your best friends?
5, I mean, yeah. But like I live with them, so like BFFs for life. My BFFs here. But no, but like seriously, like the relationships that you guys build is just like so.
Your chair broke, obviously.
Oh, it did.
Slowly, sliding down. She's fine.
Oh my God. Do you want my chair?
It's fine. Here, I'll do a stand with you.
You know? Oh, yeah, kind of. Like that.
Yeah. She's so confident it doesn't matter.
I don't know. It just has been gradually sinking this whole time.
I don't know how they work. Yep.
Yeah, and that fruits and vegetable.
Do you want to swap?
I still have them saved.
Okay, what was the second piece
Yeah.
of advice now?
What was it? I can't even remember. Oh, this is it.
3 best friends.
Yeah, 2 best friends. No, this is it. Obviously, my path to the national team was different, and it took me a while to kind of realize and accept that that's completely okay. So it's okay to be different, and that's what makes you special, and I've had to learn that that's okay. So yeah, like I said before, just be you, and I mean, some people are gonna like it and some people aren't, but like screw the people who aren't. Like, accept yourself. Yeah, that's 22 of my best friends.
For my lowly spot, I would say that the question was also directed about like taking the space, and I think that's something that I really admire about the national team is they're bold and strong, but they're also the character that these women have is incredible and extremely respectful, and I think people are always going to remember your character, and so I always think that the interactions that you have with every single individual are so important, and treating everyone that you meet with respect and making them feel welcome is going to bring the best out of them. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who are giving their best, it's going to make you give your best. So not to sound cheesy, but it kind of makes the world go round. So just being the best person you can to every single one of your teammates, strangers, everything that's something that will never fade. So that would be my advice in every situation. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but be comfortable being uncomfortable. I feel like that's something I've always thought of, like growing up with every kind of new challenge. I think of even back when I was 9, my coach that I had spoken of earlier asked me if I wanted to play up, and I had to decide between like playing with my friends or challenge myself and like going on this older team where everyone's like 30 pounds bigger than me. And everyone still is. And I chose to play up a year, and I feel like that was like a big part of my development. And I think even now, like being in the national team environment, every training I go to, I'm uncomfortable because everyone's so freaking good, and like not every day is going to be my best day. But I know when I have a good day, like I earn that because everyone is so freaking good. Like everyone's bringing everything they have every training, and so I feel like make uncomfortable your new comfortable.
That's good advice.
Wow, these are good ones. Oh dear. I always say, and I got this from being on the national team, you kind of touched on it earlier, but like when you get to that level, the difference between players is like so small, and it's like everyone can pretty much do everything, but every single person has like one thing that they're so much better than everyone else at. Like they have their special, unique talent. Sometimes it's a leadership thing, sometimes it's like shooting, sometimes it's dribbling, whatever it is. So I learned very early on, like just to not compare yourself to other people. You're never gonna be able to be as good as that other person at the very best thing that they're good at. But in turn, like no one can ever be you. No one can ever do that special thing that you can do. So I feel like a lot with, we do it on the national team, but a lot with, sports in general or trying to make teams or tryouts or whatever, there's just so much comparison going on. But really it's just about like being the best player that you can be and trying to always work on your game, always take little things, get better, but realize that there's like those little things that no one else can do that you can.
Great. Well, we are going to end this on time because we're going to take some photos, and we want to make sure that this all goes smoothly and that these guys can then relax. So I just want to say thank you. This was it was all really incredible advice, and we're really grateful for your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think that here we go. The people who are going to help with the picture situation. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Can we get a standing? Whoa, sorry about that.
Rose, that was awesome.
Can I have everybody stand and give these women a round of applause, please? Thank you all for giving us your time on the night before a match. We're going to see if we can do this in alphabetical order by club, and we're going to do this as quickly as we can. So, Team Arlington, can I get you guys up? We're going to do tall, we can do squat down. I need some blue jerseys up here. Yeah, just wherever, yeah. Squat down, sit down. I need you guys to kneel. Where's Mo Tahari when you need him to get his teams organized? Arlington, I need kneeling, sitting, and squatting. Guys, sit down.
Front row that's sitting.
Sit.